Welcome to the Be on the Move podcast, hosted by Andrew Ronchetto. Through thoughtful conversations, we explore how innovation fuels growth for humanity, uncovering the stories and ideas that shape lasting impact. And now your host, Andrew Ronchetto.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. It's Andrew here, and you're listening to Be on the Move. And today I've got a guest and a conversation really with someone who's been helping organizations uncover the one thing that can really make you unique and remarkable, and do it in 7 words or less. And the reality of this and the beauty of it is it doesn't just apply to organizations. It also applies to you and your personal life. And so I'm talking with the incredible Ian Chamandy here, and we're going to be talking about this, how he's taken this whole experience as a corporate leader and uniting teams with a clear purpose-driven vision to this point of where it really drives out growth in your own life. So as we dive deep into that why and how it can transform not just culture, but motivation, and really create a competitive edge for yourself, for your team, for your organization, listen in, because Ian's got some great thoughts there. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Andrew. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And this is one of those things that's really close to my heart. So I'm gonna kick it off by asking you what you think of purpose is, but I'm gonna throw a wrench in there and see how far off I am from the way you're thinking about it, because we've talked a little bit about it on this show. So here it goes. And if I see you like totally just kind of like look at me like, oh God, I'll know I am way off, and I got some opportunity to explore with you here.
I promise I won't roll my eyes.
Yeah, we'll find out. So here's my simple way of looking at purpose, and the way we've talked about it a little bit. It is the way you show up for yourself and for others every day.
Okay, so definitely not rolling my eyes.
Okay.
Because that's just slightly longer than my definition of purpose.
I know it's not 7 words. I'm sorry.
No. I don't mean to be, 7 words or not 7 words.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a great way to express it. But I think that there is a more sort of practical and tangible way to express it than how you show up, right? Like when you say how you show up, people can say, well, what does that mean? Tell me more. Right? So my definition comes from Pablo Picasso. And he has a famous quote, which is, the meaning of life is to find your gift, and your purpose is to share it with the world. So I just simplified that into, your purpose is to find your gift and share it with the world. But what's your gift? Right? What's your gift?
Question mark on that one.
Sure. So your gift as a human being is that one thing at your essence that makes you uniquely remarkable. And there is something in everyone, because, there's 8 billion people on the planet. And until you find somebody, who is precisely like you, that means that every one of those 8 billion people is different. That means that every one of those 8 billion people has something that makes them uniquely remarkable. And so when you discover that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, that's you, right? And then you share that with the world. And what that means is you are becoming the best you that you can possibly be. And then where that relates to what you said is, and that is how you show up for yourself and for other people, being the best you that you can possibly be. And the way you become the best you can possibly be is defining that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable. So that's my definition of purpose, is that one thing at your essence as an individual or as a company that makes you uniquely remarkable. And when you know that, then your challenge is to be the best version of that you can possibly be.
I love that. And you're right. Like I hadn't thought about it from that one angle of making sure it is as tangible as possible, because we're all busy. Like, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean, sometimes it can be bad, but The hardest thing, I've been here in Houston. There's a group that gets together on a regular cadence, and a gentleman by the name of Joey created this whole process. He calls it Cup of Joey. So everybody gets together, and a shout out to him because he does some remarkable stuff on that. But one of the things that I loved and still love about his sessions is, instead of when you walk up to somebody brand new, and you say, hey, what do you do? Because that's the thing we do as Americans. What do you do? Like, as if work is our most defining
Yeah, yeah,
element.
yeah.
And to your very point, and to his point, and to really the whole thing that resonates, I think, with everybody that shows up and goes for the first time and experiences, is, what's your purpose in life? And that is what he puts on the name tag, or has you put on the name tag. What's your purpose in life?
And then they struggle.
That is exactly where I was going to go. Even though he's prepped everybody and prepared everybody for that moment, you get there and you realize that they're like, oh shoot, I don't know. And this is not just because, maybe they're younger and just getting into the workforce, or they're in college, or they are
Doesn't
retiring.
matter.
It does not
Doesn't matter.
matter. It is a question that I think still phases people in and out every single day.
It does, because everybody knows that they have many different aspects to themselves, right? And
Yep.
it's like, where do you look? Where do you focus? What do you do? I'm often asked, both in companies and with individuals, what should I do to prepare for this? And I say, think about this question. If everything that you do is a means to an end, what is the end purpose of that? Right? So if you're an individual and you're trying to figure out your purpose, you're looking around at all these things that you do, well, is that my purpose? And is that my purpose? And is that my purpose? No, those are all shadows that are cast from your purpose. So imagine your purpose as a stone that casts shadows. Everything that you do is a shadow cast from that stone. Same with a company. Everything it does as a company, everything that it says, is a shadow cast from that stone. And so what you have to do is you have to dig deep to figure out what the stone is. The stone is the common thread that links all those things together. And you mentioned something in the beginning about we're all in a hurry and that sort of thing, and it
Mhm.
conjured up the famous quote from Mark Twain. I wrote a long letter because I didn't take the time to write a short one. This process, well, I have a process for helping
Yeah,
you
yeah.
discover what your purpose. This process is the taking the time to write the short letter, because our standard for your purpose statement, the actual words that express your purpose, is 7 words or less. Right? So your buddy with the name tag, you got to be able to fit it on. Not only
Yep.
do you have to know what it is, you have to be able to fit it onto a name tag. So our standard is 7 words or less. And I know that doesn't sound like a whole lot of words, but most of them are actually 2 or 3 or 4. So it's just a matter of taking the time to write a short letter. I don't know if you know the organization TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival, but
I don't, but I've
it's
heard of it. I've heard of it.
it's the second biggest film festival in the world to Cannes in France. And so when we did their blueprint, their COO said, we've done these strategic exercises many times before, but you guys went about 6 layers deeper than anyone else. Yeah, because we took the time to write a short letter. So once you have that short letter, once you have your purpose expressed in 7 words or less, that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, now you can take that, right? You've got an insight about yourself that is profound, that you never knew before. Well, you sort of knew it, but now you can articulate it. And now you can start to live that intentionally. It's always been there guiding your behavior, but in a haphazard kind of way, because it's not, you can't articulate it. You don't know what it is. But once you do, then you get to be that, right? So mine is transforming confusion into clarity. I'm all about simplifying
Okay.
so that the answer is short and self-evident, right? Purpose in 7 words or less. That's a shadow cast from my stone for my purpose, right? but transforming confusion into clarity. I just born with an ability to deconstruct complex issues, not on my own, right? In a group, to facilitate the merging of a bunch of brains in the solving of this process. And I have a process for deconstructing and deconstructing, make it simpler, until at some point, the simple answer, not the complex one, the simple answer pops out. And you just go, wow, that's fantastic. So, and I love that, right? So when you say, oh my God, I can't believe that has been bothering us for so long, and now we have clarity about it. When you say that, that's a huge dopamine hit to me. That's a big ego inflator, and that's what I live for. I love that because I know how much that difficult problem, um, was hindering your organization, or as an individual, it's giving you freedom, right? Because it's
For
like
sure.
you spend every day asking yourself, who am I? Who am I? Right? When you do something right, who am I that did that? When you do something wrong, who the hell am I that did that wrong? So you're asking yourself every day. But I have an answer. For me, I have an answer for myself. I am transforming confusion into clarity. And now that I know that, I can be that intentionally and I can make better decisions about my life.
I love that. And I tell people mine, since we're in a bear all session here. But I define mine as to revolutionize holistic wellness, and part of that comes from my experience. I wouldn't say that's the way I've always looked at it. I know I've always been a helper my entire life. It's why I got into consulting, and I decided to take on the unbearable projects that everybody thought were impossible and do something with them. So a different angle from, like you said, but the dopamine hit for me was taking this complex thing that I always described as six-dimensional games of chess, and
Hmm.
then rationalizing it down into, this way of being successful and driving it without, and I'll say as a tangential item, burning everybody out in the process. Like the one I still remember and I still talk to, and it really kind of gave me the aha moment, was doing an SAP full stack implementation in 10 months. And on the night of, and you can probably appreciate this a little bit, is on the night of go live, people went home at 5 p.m. I didn't get them to do that. They did that themselves. Like,
Right, right.
that wasn't you're going to go home and then, freak out all night long because we're not ready to go. That was well, let's go live. Do we still have stuff to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? You tell me. Like, this is all you guys. And they're like, no, we're ready to go. Should we turn it on? It's like, no, that's tomorrow morning. Like, go home. Like, just be ready. And it's those types of experiences where I think it leans into it. So for me, that's how I got to kind of this whole idea of holistic wellness, because we don't focus enough on the interconnected points between all the dimensions. And we've talked about those 8 dimensions across different episodes. But when you think about it in the context of work, like we were doing, it's the mental aspect of it. The dopamine people get from realizing they've successfully done something and we're ready just to turn the switch on. Or it's the emotional aspect of it of, I'm not pulling out my hair because this isn't working at the final hour, the 11th hour. Or it's the relationship aspect, because we trusted each other enough to get it done and to lean on each other. And
Right,
so
right.
it's the environment, it's all these things. And those are all just dimensions of holistic wellness, and like how you bring it out in life, the growth, the opportunity, the potential is in between all that, not just in one facet or dimension or another. And so I totally appreciate what it is. And to your point, I get a joy when somebody realizes the aha moment of what it means to do that, even if they're not, I'll say consciously looking at it. And so I'm sure you kind of see it as well. And I'm curious from your side if there have been some moments from your perspective that have really created these meaningful and intentional like pushes for people to reevaluate their own purpose. Because I also don't think purpose is something that's static for your entire life either.
Oh, okay. So we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Oh, okay, okay.
And as an example, I'll give you 2 examples. Okay. IBM, after the Second World War, 40s, 50s, 60s, what role did it play in global business? Well, what it did is it supplied the most sophisticated business technology to the biggest companies in the world. Jump forward 80 years. What role is IBM playing in the global business community? It's supplying the most sophisticated business technology to the biggest companies on the planet. So, through generations of management, through CEO after CEO after CEO who had their own vision of where to take the company, they did lead differently,
Sure. Yep.
but on the same path. IBM has stayed on the same path the whole time. Now, let's look at you, right? How old are you now?
37, I think.
37. Yeah. I can't even remember 37. Anyway, now think of yourself at 18, right?
I got it.
You're the same guy with nuanced difference. Of course, you're smarter. Of course, you're more experienced. Of course, you're more mature,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. But you know what music marketers are going to play for you in advertisement, TV commercials that are aimed at you? The music that you were listening to when you were 18.
I don't even know what that was. I mean, to be fair, I got little girls right now, so it's between
Yeah,
Moana,
you're all confused.
Mickey, my
It's all
my
Taylor
my
Swift.
my top, yeah, not yet, but I'm sure it's coming. Like
Right.
my top list though is nowhere close to what I was listening to at 18. But I get your point. Like I still believe I'm a helper at heart. I'll say it that way. But there's not like what does help mean to me. It's I think
Okay, so
evolved. Yeah.
so asking what does that mean is such an important process, a question to this process. Can I put you on the spot a little bit?
Absolutely. I think
Because this will
doing
be,
that on these shows helps people be like, "Oh man, like we're getting real."
yeah, and the thing is, so I want to show people what it means to go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. So can you repeat your purpose statement again? It was revolutionizing.
Holistic wellness.
Okay, cool. So I have a colloquial measurement for how close are we
Okay.
in the neighborhood, in the front yard, in the hall, in the kitchen. And in the kitchen is where you want to be because that's where all good parties are, right?
Yes, I love to cook.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. So what I would do, how I would steer the conversation in order to move you from not yet the kitchen into the kitchen is I would say to you, I would ask you two questions. What does revolutionize mean in your world, in your context? And what does holistic wellness mean in your world, in your context? And we would dig deeper into those and we would find the language to express those things in a way that brought out the value of what that is. So the reason I'm putting on your spot is I think the words are not quite right, but
Okay.
you're in the right direction,
That's fair.
right?
I'm with you
We're
there.
building on a good start, and then we just got to go deeper. It's like this is the path, right? You're not on the wrong path. So let's go down this path. Let's explore what revolutionize means. Let's explore what holistic wellness means. Because when you state your purpose statement in 7 words or less, there are 2 qualities that it has to exhibit. One is it has to be logical, because if it's logical, then it's self-evident. You understand what it means. If you don't understand what it means, you're lost already.
For sure.
Second thing is, it has to resonate on a deep emotional level. And I think it does for you, right? Because that's why you've taken the time to express it so concisely. Imagine yourself in a difficult emotional situation. Like, let's say you've just been laid off, right? You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't get fired, but you've been laid off. We call that a trigger event. This is a 3-part thing. A trigger event creates uncertainty about the future, and that uncertainty causes anxiety and even fear. So you get a layoff notice. Whoa, trigger event. What's my next job? Am I going to be able to get a job? How am I going to pay my, my mortgage or my rent until I get that job? And will I make as much in that? So there's all these questions that are unanswered. That's the uncertainty. And as a result, you have anxiety or even fear, right? And if I say to you, I'm all about transforming confusion into clarity. When you're in that state, that's going to resonate with you on a deep emotional level, because you are experiencing confusion, and you do know that clarity is the antidote to that confusion. And that's what you want. You want clarity in all those answers. So you're in this anxiety. I say, I'm all about transforming confusion into clarity. And your response is, oh, I want me some of that. If you're not in that state, the very same person, if you're not in that state, and I say transforming confusion into clarity, your response is going to be, oh, that makes sense. That's nice. Right. But it doesn't. So we need to come up with an articulation that doesn't just grab you on a deep emotional level, but it grabs all the people that you want to share your purpose with. It has to resonate with them on a deep emotional level too. And that's why we would explore those two questions. What does revolutionize mean? What does holistic wellness mean?
No, absolutely. And I think that I'm even thinking back to, when I started off this and said, what does purpose mean to me? It's not just showing up for yourself, but for others. It's that relatability element that you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah, 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 exactly. Exactly. That's it.
I totally get it. We would run out of time super quick, like diving into it, but the whole idea of the revolutionize and the holistic wellness are very personalized, personal things for me. One
Yeah.
being a very complex consultingly term, since I come from that background. I love listening every once in a while to Weird Al's Yankovic's like a consulting buzzword, no word video. And you're just like, oh, but it is definitely still a buzzy word because it's not detailed enough. And then the holistic wellness for most folks is unknown unless they've hit
Right.
like you said, a trigger event that gets them to think about it. And I would say that has been something for me as well, to your very point.
Right. Right. Right.
So
Right.
it's interesting how, like, in this just, brief reflection on myself, like it's sharing some insights for folks to understand how they can leverage the framework you've been building to also then like navigate challenges as well in life. Because I think like the challenge in understanding oneself allows you then to I'll say, be more decisive on the decisions you make on other challenges in life, or the things you do or you don't do, or the energy you get from those things. So I think there's a big cascading effect as a result of having greater clarity on your purpose.
You actually just raised a really, really important point. And it's the solution to my frustration with the purpose industry,
Okay.
right? The purpose industry, if you read articles on purpose, if you hear people do podcasts on purpose, they'll talk about everything in purpose except for what the definition is. And if they give you a definition, it's either so academic that you don't understand it, or it's so woo woo that it just doesn't resonate with you.
Sure.
But my contention is that when your purpose is that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable at your core, the dirty little secret about its magic is that it's just a decision making tool. Let me give you an example of a person and how it's a decision making tool. Um, a colleague of mine was the CEO of this company, and it was her third time being a CEO, so she was not inexperienced. And she'd been there for about 5 years. We were having a drink after work, and she said, the company's running itself, and I'm getting bored. And I said, it sounds like, it's time for you to look for your next gig. And she said, it is, but I've been putting it off because it scares the daylights out of me. And I said, what the heck are you talking about? And she said, when I joined this company 5 years ago, it was on the verge of bankruptcy. So I had to put my head down, I had to put the blinders on, and I just had to work, 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 work. And I had to, get everybody to help me pull it out. And now, 5 years later, it's running itself. But because I had my head down, because I had the blinders on, um, I I feel like the business world has passed me by. I don't know what skills are important now. I don't know if I have the skills that are relevant to the current market. I don't know if there's going to be another company out there that wants me. I don't know if I join a company, am I going to fit in? So again,
A lot.
trigger event
Yep.
is her decision to change her career. So it's not even, it's been imposed on her. She's doing this willingly, knowing it's the right decision for her. It's created all sorts of uncertainty, unanswered questions. And so what I suggested to her is that we figure out her purpose to see if that brought some clarity. So she talked for about, and I was asking her questions. And what became very clear was that unless there was a huge challenge, it didn't engage her brain. And she got distracted and bored. And I said, in all your talking, you've conjured up this image in my mind of troops, soldiers who have just been to hell and back, and they're battle weary and they're dirty and they're hungry, and they have just arrived at a minefield and they've got to cross to the other side. It's like, one more thing. How am I going to get across this live? Well, all these unanswered questions that could lead to their death if they're not answered. And you can imagine this new leader coming to them and saying, don't worry, I've been through a million minefields before. I am an expert at getting through minefields. Follow me, and I'll lead you safely through the minefield. Well, you can imagine the reaction of the troops, right? It's like, oh my God, our savior is here. Just tell me what to do. So you talk about her purpose resonating on a deep emotional level. So her purpose became leading safely across the minefield. And when she heard that, she said, that's me. That's the person I want to be. That's what I want to do in life. And so now a headhunter comes to her and says, I've got this great opportunity for you. It is a fabulous company on a growth path. It's a darling of the financial community, and it needs a steady hand on the tiller to continue its wonderful growth path. Now, any CEO would give their eye teeth for that kind of opportunity. But her purpose is her purpose is leading safely through the minefield. So what does she say?
Oh,
No,
thank you.
no, thank you. Now that would bore me within 6 months. What else have you got? And he says, well, I got this stinking pile of garbage over here, but I'm embarrassed to show it to you. And she says, no, show me that. That's what I want. Because remember what I said at the start about her. Her brain does not get engaged unless there's a catastrophe in front of her. This stinking pile of garbage is the what was the word I just said? Was the disaster that she's looking for. So purpose is a decision-making tool. If you're graduating from university and, job opportunities, right? How do I choose the right job? Again, career change. What do I do? This is a big one. Oh my God. We did a test of all of our different potential target groups. And the one that got the best response was retirees. Because you've just spent the last 30, 40, 50 years being defined by your career. Your purpose was your family and your career, even though those aren't really purposes. But now that you're retired, now that the nest is empty, now that the phone isn't ringing, now that emails aren't coming in needing you, now that invitations to corporate events are no longer happening, now that you've got all this free time to do whatever you want, what the heck are you going to do? What the heck are you going to do? And I was talking to this guy yesterday who said his father has been retired. His father's in his early 80s, mid 80s, really healthy, but he's been retired for 30 years. And the guy said he's done nothing. And until my mother died, all he did was be a pain in the ass to her. And so, you know, now you're retired. How do you stay out of your spouse's hair? Right? Well, figure out what your purpose is, and that will guide you in those kinds of decisions. What to do to fill your time, how to maintain a social group so you don't, become insular and lonely, how you interact, what kind of life are you going to carve out with your spouse now? How are you going to manage your money to accommodate all these new decisions that you're making as a result of your purpose? Right. So, yeah. So
How you actively live and design your life around it, I think is what you're really saying. Like,
that's right. And that's what my course teaches people how to do. So, my company is called Purpose University. And it's a course. It takes about 6 hours to do. You can spread that out over days or weeks or whatever. Not months. You need to sort of stay engaged with the process. But I lead you on literally a step-by-step process to figure out how to reveal your purpose, how to synthesize it down to 7 words or less, how to tell the story of it, which broadens your understanding of what it is, but lets you tell other people in a charismatic way. And then, the final step is how to live a life of meaning, use it to live a life of meaning and purpose. So that's the course that we just launched. And there's like 27 videos. They're between 2 and 10 minutes each, so it's not onerous. There's two areas you work. There's the area where you watch the videos, and then there's the area where you go to do the exercises. And the cool thing about doing the exercises is that we have our own artificial intelligence agent called Wordsmith. Wordsmith is a master of all things purpose. And so as you're doing the exercises, you've got me on one side of you, coaching you how to do them through the videos. And you've got Wordsmith on the other side that's going to do two things. One is it's going to help you find the words, right? So you got a notion in your head, you're struggling with how to express it. It will help you find the words. But the other thing it will help you do is it will look at raw data. And that's what we do in the course. We break down stuff about you until we've got this raw data. And Wordsmith, the AI agent, will about you it finds. And what you come up with at the end of that is 3 buckets of information about yourself: your beliefs, your wants, and your talents. And those are the 3 components of purpose. So when you make a decision that is aligned with your purpose, what you're actually doing is you're saying, I'm making a decision that's aligned with my beliefs, my wants, and my talents. And that's why you feel so confident about the decision, because it's aligned with you and who you are. And you're able to determine that on a conscious, intentional basis once you know your purpose, as opposed to flailing around the way most of us do every day of our lives.
absolutely. And that's maybe a great way to start bringing this to a close here, because I think you just eloquently described a meaningful, objective, practical way of figuring out kind of some of the meaning in your career and your life, and how you can realign to it if you're misaligned, so to say, or as I like to talk about, come back to balance or come back to harmony,
Yes, yes, yes.
like, because it's not about like, oh, you're doing it wrong. It's just it's
Mhm.
greater insights, it's greater awareness. And so
Yeah, it's more intentionality.
exactly. 100% agree. So, before we drop off, Ian, I don't know if there's any other thoughts you want to throw out there to folks, or, like you said, purpose you .ai, and we will include all that in the show notes. But if there's anything else you want to share with folks.
Yeah, one brief thing. And I sort of alluded to this earlier on when I was talking about 8 billion people on the planet. I'm convinced that well over half of those 8 billion people think there's nothing special about them. And therefore, they don't deserve anything special and they can't accomplish anything special. And I'm here to tell you that when you design, when you uncover that one thing that makes you uniquely remarkable, that's your superpower. And that is embedded in your DNA. Nobody can ever take that away from you. So for the first time, you know that there is something of value that you uniquely have to offer to the world. And that elevates your confidence. All of a sudden, you become a more confident person permanently. And then the second thing is just this ability to make decisions that are more aligned with who you are at your core. And those are just two really magical things to do. And it doesn't matter what age you are when you first figure that out. And so those, our tagline, our slogan is life gets better with purpose. And that's how, by elevating your confidence permanently and giving you a decision-making tool that helps you align your choices with who you are.
I love that. And for those listening, and something I've talked about before, and I think it's so important because you said it in a very, very eloquent way, Ian, is we're all here. And so whether you want to have an impact on someone else or not,
yes,
you are having an impact. It's just, to your point, the intentionality of what that impact looks like.
And how are you going to show up to yourself? And how are you going to show up to others, like you said in the beginning?
Ian, this has been fantastic, and I really appreciate it. For everybody out there that's listened to this and what Ian Chamandy has been doing with the work at Purpose U, as well as the new platform that's come out, both for now the individual level, if I'm correct, but also, what you've been doing for years in the corporate world, just the importance of purpose and really driving the outcomes in life that matter most to you. So,
right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian, thank you as well for spending some time and sharing all of this knowledge with folks. And for those out there, what I'm going to suggest is take the first step. That's the most important thing. And I always talk about and try to tell you, encourage you to take a step related to this. But if you're like me, pondering about your purpose and thinking, okay, yeah, Ian's right, I could go a little bit deeper. That's where I'm at. Is maybe that's the step you take this week. And until the next time we connect with you all, stay well, keep focused, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Be on the Move. Don't forget to follow us, rate the show, and share with others. If you're ready to dive deeper, visit us at beyondplatform.com. Catch you next time.